Brian Flores is in the building today. Browns continue their defensive coordinator search. We'll talk about it in the first segment. Brian Flores' background, where he's been, what his MO is, and some of the characteristics that he brings to the table as a defensive coordinator. Segment two, we'll get into Brian Flores and what would make him be attracted to this job, the pieces and parts that the Cleveland Browns have on this defense. What would attract him to this job? And is this something that is the most attractive job on the board of the teams that do need defensive coordinators or potentially will be projected to need defensive coordinators this offseason? And then finally, if Brian Flores is the guy, we bring him in. What does that look like if he has success? He's one of the top young coaches in the game. If he does come here and we play very well, chances are that Brian Flores could be gone because he will get a head coaching job. Is that something that you are worried about or should be worried about if you're going to hire him? We're going to have to be back here at the same place, same time, doing another coordinator position after 2023. These are all great questions, but you're lucky you got Jeff and I to navigate the waters. It's the next Locked On Browns podcast.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. How's everybody doing today? Your hosts, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd. Garrett Bush, part of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, radio personality, 92.3 The Fan, every Saturday morning, barbershop open for all you fine folks. Numerous other appearances for G. Bush through 92.3 The Fan, of course, pregame, postgame coverage for all your local teams. You'll find G. Bush there in attendance. Today's episode of Locked On Browns is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than the Prize Picks projection, you can win 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. We sat down yesterday. Obviously, we spoke on Jim Schwartz as he was the first interview for the defense coordinator position for the Cleveland Browns. Today is the Brian Flores Day, or as we might say it, the G. Bush sponsored Brian Flores Day. Seen a lot here on social media today. This is a guy that I know everybody seems to be excited. A lot of people haven't pegged this the one, and I think it's fair to say, and even if you wanted to say 1A, 1B, maybe with he and Jim Schwartz, certainly fair as well. Brian Flores, Brooklyn-raised kid, Brownsville section of Brooklyn, New York. Boston College educated, was a linebacker at Boston College. No chance to pursue playing time after his collegiate career. He was just too injured, and it was just time to start going another path. So he starts his other path. 2008, gets in the door with the New England Patriots. Look, if you're a young guy trying to find your way into the league in any way, coaching, front office, obviously that is probably the best, I have to say the best opportunity one could get. So years of serving and assisting, Brian Flores starts climbing the ranks, starts becoming an excellent guy at his job. He wasn't even a defense coordinator for the New England Patriots when he got hired. He was a linebacker coach when he got hired to become head coach of the Miami Dolphins. 2019, and I talked about this, yesterday, sometimes in the past with Brian Flores. God-awful team. An absolute god-awful team. No talent whatsoever. There were guys on that roster aren't in the league anymore. The guys in that roster was the only time they were ever in the league. Got 5 wins with that team, which was a yeoman's effort for a team that, basically nobody heard about the talent on that team. 2021 puts together back-to-back winning seasons with the Miami Dolphins. Then you get into the issue. The Dolphins had thoughts, had eyes, otherwhere, of something else they were trying to pursue, so much so that obviously they've been penalized for their efforts. Brian Flores, after being dismissed from the Miami Dolphins, filed a lawsuit, which is still pending against the Miami Dolphins. There are some other teams that are sort of involved here, the Denver Broncos being one named in this lawsuit, Houston Texans, another one being named in this lawsuit. So these are franchises that most likely Brian Flores ain't even go working for, which opens up the opportunity here for Cleveland. His first interview as defense coordinator after his 1-year stint as a senior defensive assistant coaching the linebackers for Mike Tomlin. Got a good year this year out of the linebacker crew in Pittsburgh. Everybody knew wherever Brian Flores went in 2022, it was just going to be a quick pit stop, as he was going to go right back to a coordinator position. And the one last thing here before I get to you, G, is he does have an excellent relationship. Granted, he coaches the defensive side of the ball. He has a great relationship with Deshaun Watson. I'm not saying this is going to sway things one way or the other, but you just get one more guy in here who's kind of already comfortable with the situation, comfortable with some of the talent. Today, Thursday, Brian Flores Day in Berea.
All of the pieces are coming together here, Jeff. When you look at it, Brian Flores, with the way it ended with the Dolphins, we also, have the thing where allegedly, Bill Belichick, he has a lot of people on his tree. So he had a Brian Flores and a Brian Dable. And he ended up texting the wrong Brian. Congratulations on getting the job. I've talked to the Giants and they pretty much said that they're going to go in your direction. Now that's great if you're Brian Dable, but if you accidentally were Brian Flores and got that same text message prior to you actually going to take an interview, you're going to be kind of salty about that. So there's a lot of different things that Brian Flores is involved with in terms of the lawsuit with the NFL. But for the Cleveland Browns, the best thing for them is they probably get a chance to hire a candidate that would have not been on the board necessarily. This is a guy that probably would have never had an opportunity to fall down to you or be available for you to be a defensive coordinator because he had some track record of success as a head coach. So, it's great the fact that we do get a chance to interview him. He'll be in Berea today. And I just think what he brings to the table is something that the rest of the coaching staff does not have, and we didn't have last year. We didn't have the ability to have a guy that was a nasty guy, a mean guy, a guy that says what he what he feels and feels what he says. He's definitely a spark plug. He's somebody on the defense that's not going to sit here and let you mess up and have missed assignments. He's not going to be some guy that's not going to be sitting there and with his hands on his hips with the clipboard and the plays in front of his face. I think that is pivotal and is necessary for that to happen with the Cleveland Browns, because right now, I don't think you can have a couple passive coaches, right? You can have a coach that's not a rah-rah guy, but I don't think you can win no championship and win at a high level if your coaches, your coordinators, your best defensive player, your best offensive player, Mark Cooper, Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb, those guys are very quiet. Denzel Ward is quiet. So all of those individuals, and it's hard to find an outspoken offensive lineman anyway. So all of these players have the same demeanor. I think it's imperative that you bring somebody into the fold that can inspire people, to let them know the status quo ain't working around here. The status quo is not going to get it done. And I need all my people to be doing something. That's the support staff. I need my accountants. I need everybody to keep competing to get this organization better. So I like what he brings to the table. I think he has a good pedigree, good background. And we'll see if Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry, Paul DePodesta, and Jimmy and D. Haslam feel the same way.
And the biggest thing, and I'll just say this, is it's great to handle things, calm, cool, collected. But look, not everybody takes feedback the same way. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And every now and then, somebody's got to get lit up for either A, not doing their assignment, B, not putting in the work, C, not giving 110% effort all the time. Sometimes you need a warden. You know what I'm saying? Somebody that's going to send somebody to box. And a guy like Brian Flores, those things will not be tolerated. Remember, we all lost our minds. Tony Fields running into the punter against the Miami Dolphins. Well, let me tell you something. Something like that happens, the last place you're going to want to go, if you were the guy who were to make that mistake, if you're on the defensive side of the ball, is anywhere near Brian Flores. Because Brian Flores is going to let you know that it is completely unacceptable. We're going to switch it up here a little bit. We're going to get to where is the appeal from the Browns standpoint of bringing Brian Flores. Brian Flores, what's the appeal of this Cleveland Browns defense that makes you basically want to get in here and do this work with this team. Jeff Lloyd, Garrett Bush, your latest Locked On Browns. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From pro football to college bowl season to basketball, we've got it all at BetOnline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can find those as well at BetOnline. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Garrett and I are really geeked out by our new partner and sponsor of today's episode, the mobile game Ultimate Football GM. Have you ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your football franchise? Well, your dream can come true, and this game is definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team. Play through the season and lead your team to glory. You are responsible for hiring the right coaches and coordinators, trading players, making draft picks, navigating your franchise through free agency and the draft and all the ups and downs of a season. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. You get into the game here. Each season brings something new. Maybe you're losing players due to age. You're losing players because their contracts are up and they want to go test the open market. Sometimes you're heavy on draft capital and you've got to get your roster younger and cheaper so you can manage your cap. These are all things you can do with Ultimate GM. Locked On Browns listeners get a 100% free boost to the franchise when using the promo code Locked On, all caps, in the game store. That's Locked On, all caps. So make sure to check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today.
Welcome back to the Locked On Browns podcast. Make sure you definitely go follow us on Locked On Browns podcast. You make sure you subscribe on YouTube as well. Hit the notification bell and make sure you click all. Make sure you click all. So that means you will get all of our updates every time we go live. So continue to support us over there. And thank you guys for making Locked On Browns your first listen of each and every day. We look at the Denver Broncos job is available. We look at the Atlanta Falcons job potentially is available. The Indianapolis Colts, the Atlanta Falcons.
You also remember though, Garrett, we're going through a hiring period right now. So some teams are going to lose their defensive coordinator. You know what I'm saying? That we don't even know yet. Yeah.
Right, like D'Amico Ryans, right? If he leaves San Francisco, gets head judge, then that's open. So obviously that's a a nice position to land if you're Brian Flores. But the one thing I think what makes the Browns appealing, and I think it's one of the top programs, and I'm not just being a homer here. The reason I think it's really a good job is because you look at three things. Most likely, any team as a defensive coordinator, and you're an aggressive defensive coordinator, you want to be able to go to a situation where they have a quarterback. You want to be able to play aggressively. You don't want to worry about playing bend but don't break or trying to limit people to score because you don't have a quarterback that can come back and score and give a headache to the other opposing defense. So you always want to look at quarterback. So you look at all of those other teams, they either don't have an established quarterback, or if they do have a quarterback, he's a journeyman and it's nobody that's really nothing to write home on. So also, when you look at it in terms of that, you want to have a coach, or the offense and the quarterback. You got that. Let's take a look at some of the pieces and parts that he has. Guess what? I mean, you look at it. He has Myles Garrett, who is probably one of the top 3 rush ends, and he has to like the secondary. If he's going to come in and blitz as much as he does, you got guys like Emerson, you got guys like Newsome, you got guys like Denzel Ward. You could play more man coverage, and you have those pieces and parts ready to go. And plus, the next thing that you're going to get while you're in Cleveland is, for lack of a better term, Jimmy Haslam, used to meddle a lot, but you saw what Kevin Stefanski gave to Joe Woods. Joe Woods, I didn't think it was that great in 2020. But what Joe Woods was able to do is still come back and get his players and still come back and make sure he had the best ingredients to make the dinner that night. And so if you're Brian Flores, you're going to have the ingredients, you're going to have the cap space, you're going to have the backing of your organization. Now it's just about going out there and getting it done. But yeah, I definitely think there's some really real advantages from roster to the way you just think about how you manage the game and his background that really make him a really pivotal and just a likely candidate in his position.
Brian Flores should not be available. The only reason Brian Flores is not a head coach in the NFL right now is because what the Miami Dolphins did to him and the actions he and his team did to essentially stand up for himself. Brian Flores should be a head coach somewhere. With him basically sitting in limbo here with this pending lawsuit, he's not going to get a head coaching gig right now. And I'm sure he understands that. He does. And, his team understood once they filed that lawsuit, not going to be completely blackballed, but obviously somewhat blackballed. What the Browns are getting. 2019, Miami Dolphins defense ranked 32nd overall. 2020, 7th. 7th, G. Bush. He improved this defense 25 spots in total rankings in one season. Now, you look at the Browns, and what you're getting in here is you're getting a younger guy. Brian Flores is going to be 42 in February. Coaching-wise, that's young. We're talking about Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz, almost 55 years old. Brian Flores still got some up to him. You know what I'm saying? It's still there. He's just got a high energy output. Everything about the guy is high energy. That's why you blitz so much, because you are and the thing you love about it is it's just a mercenary type thing. I went back today. I was watching the game. I think it was 20 against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. He had guys in the backfield, Lamar Jackson, all day long. And the worst thing he did that day to confuse the living daylights out of Lamar Jackson is he dropped his nose tackle 19 times, knowing that anytime Lamar Jackson was going to be in an emergency, he was going to look for Mark Andrews somewhere over the middle. Well, it was really hard to do with a 6'4", 350-pound dude standing there, just maybe waving his arms. You know what I'm saying? Like the guy out in front of the new store. You know what I'm saying? Just waving his arms.
The crazy, wacky arms.
There you go. But see, this is what you want, though. You want a guy, and when we talked about it on the offensive side of the ball, you want creativity. You want to be always switching things up. Vanilla, it's great if it works, but you know what? Players aren't nearly as fired up as when they get in there and they get the week's plan and say, oh, that's new. Oh, that's new. Number one, it's two things. You're always trying to push your players to keep them more engaged. You're truly trying to do that. But the other thing is, once you start doing that and players look and say, man, there ain't nothing this guy ain't willing to try. Now players start to get more involved. And players start to say, you know what, that worked out so well. I watched this, I saw this. And you're starting to get guys who aren't just coming in, doing what's required of them, and getting the heck out back the door and going back home to play Call of Duty. It's just not going to work that way. These are the guys you're going to have Myles Garrett intrigued week in, week out. For Flores, you look at a player like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and this type of athlete you have. What can I do to get this guy to just be an absolute machine for me? What can I scheme up for him? Because the guy can be a game wrecker at times. I've got to make sure he stays clean, and I allow him to do that. For as well, it's a really, really fun matchup. And this is a coup for the Browns because this guy really should not be available. He should not. And the Browns are in a tough situation where they desperately need a really, really good defense coordinator. And this is one of the best. This is one of the better defensive minds in the NFL right now. So for Brian Flores and the Cleveland Browns, this looks like something that should really, really, really work. I'm sure he's going to have another opportunity or two somewhere. But, when you were Brian Flores, and we're going to get to this in segment 3, you're looking at the Browns and saying, Myles Garrett, that's secondary. And the other thing is, what can I do to basically make sure I'm telling the Cleveland Browns a year from now, thank you for the opportunity. It's created a better opportunity for me. Because this is the way strong-minded people think. Brian Flores thinks wherever he goes to coach in 2023, it's only going to be there for a hot minute because he's going back and he's getting his own locker room once again. We're going to get to that here in the third segment. Garrett Bush, Jeff Lloyd, continuing here on your latest Locked On Browns. Looking for a delicious treat, but don't want all of the fat and calories, then you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. If you're like me, when you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, then man, I've got just the thing for you. You've got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious, you won't think they're good for you. Perfect for your New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they are all covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars stick to the candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is they are healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to buy a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built Bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today. Walk to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you are close to Sam's Club, run in, grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro, and you can thank me later.
Jim Schwartz in yesterday, longtime head coach. This week, we got Brian Flores in the building. Two of the most, I guess, well-known candidates. I'm sure they'll bring in some other people, but Brian Flores is in there today. One thing, and I think people have been kind of having this in the back of their mind is, do we still want to go all out for Brian Flores, give him autonomy, maybe possibly change our scheme a little bit in terms of how we play? Getting the ingredients to go to improving the defense. And then all of a sudden in 1 year, just like that, he gets another head coaching job and you're just looking around like, dang. I don't ever look at it that way. I look at it in the fact that the Cleveland Browns are behind the 8 ball. And that's what everything they do. They're behind the 8 ball when it comes to how you're going to acquire talent at receiver or free agents, defensive tackles, and replenish the roster. You're under the hammer and the gun a little bit when you talk about make or break years for Stefanski and Barry. So you talk about under the gun because you don't have another one pick, and so now you have to recreate your roster and find diamonds in the rough in the second, third, and fourth rounds. All of those things are very difficult.
And I put this out in a tweet today, and people just you word a tweet perfectly, and still people just don't read it. The point is, he is that good, and you understand, even though it is only possibly a 1-year gig, you're more than okay with it. You are more than okay with it because you are getting top shelf. You are getting a top of the food chain guy. We just said there's all these reasons why Brian Flores shouldn't even be available. So you want to know what? He comes in here, you get the AFC North, you play 2-3 playoff games. It is all worth it. And honestly, whoever came in from whoever the way this defense played this year, if they are able to get him, the defense, to the capabilities that we think are kind of there for this defense, same thing would have ran true. I mean, you were a coordinator of a successful team. You improve your unit, whether it be offense, whether it be defense, greatly. You automatically jump up the charts in consideration of becoming a head coach. You watch this every year. You've got your interviews that happen now, and then you have interviews that will maybe happen next week, the week after, when all these good teams start to get eliminated from the playoffs, and now their coaches are available to be interviewed. So, but a guy like Brian Flores to be there to be had now. The thing we don't know, though, is where is Brian Flores as far as committing? Because he can wait a couple more weeks. And once these teams that are playoff teams start losing some of their personnel, i.e. defensive coordinators, does there become a better position for him to go to? This is probably why the reason the Browns are on this as quickly as they can. They know this. They understand this. But be able to get this guy and understand if it goes the way you want it in 12 months, we're starting from scratch. You know what? A, that is great because we had a very successful season. And B, it's going to be just that easy to go find another top-notch guy again. Because you say, well, look at our defense from last year. Yeah, we need somebody to run it. It's good. It's great. It's young talent everywhere. I got a second,
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely.
all of a sudden now I'm excited. Hey, let me go take that defense. This is gonna be it's gonna be a breeze right here.
Yes. Plus, also you give the opportunity for Brian Flores to bring in an assistant or two here for himself to maybe put into that position. Just one thing, Jerod Mayo, he is getting a head coaching interview with the Carolina Panthers. We'll see where this goes if he even gets to Berea. He's not scheduled this point, but yeah, Jay. So he's actually getting a head coach.
Crazy.
Tells you a lot about Jerod Mayo. And the other thing is, I had some people come at me with, Rooney Rule. They interviewed Steve Wilkes, who was their current interim head coach. Guess what, folks? Right. You know Steve Wilkes. He was here. The Rooney Rule was already satisfied. So let's not go that route. Let's not discount the man like that. But you get the opportunity to bring in a guy like this. And for Brian Flores, what he did in Pittsburgh, obviously, this year, not going to get much weight. It's really, really difficult when you go from head coach basically down to basically a member of a staff with a positional assignment. Once you get back to the coordinator role, that's where things are going to be determined. I'd love to get him because I think there's an edge and a part of Miles that's probably still been untapped as far as just, getting Miles to maybe just basically go hog wild at points. You know what I'm saying? Miles, the game comes so smoothly, comes so easily. I'd love to see a time where maybe Myles Garrett played with just a tad bit more fire. You know what I'm saying? As great as he is, a Hall of Fame trajectory of a career, but you get somebody who maybe can get him and say, hey, you want to know what? 16 is great. I personally think you're capable of 22. So, you know what I'm saying? That's like what you could do with a player like Jeremiah Usu-Koromoa, what you can do with this secondary. I love to blitz. That's great. I got three guys I can play man-to-man. I got a cornerback in Denzel Ward who likes to set quarterbacks up in the bad throws. I got a guy like Martin Emerson that gets physical for every second he possibly can. This is a really, really intriguing option here. Hopefully the Browns handle this interview accordingly. Hopefully Brian Flores comes in here and sees what he likes to see. There are a lot of great candidates for the Cleveland Browns here, but I think for the fans, especially, the run defense will improve, which will solve a lot of headaches for you fans. You are going to see a lot more getting after the quarterback, from Brian Flores, something I'm sure you guys will appreciate. So the big interview today, we'll see the way it plays out, as Browns start to get through the interview process here in getting closer to be naming a new defensive coordinator. We'll get back at you tomorrow, with whatever latest news we got. We got 6 football games this weekend. Me and G, you'll throw some picks on there. We've always done this every offseason, so you'll throw some picks on there as far as the way we see this weekend shaking out in the NFL playoffs. Garrett Bush, he's part of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, as you guys know, Monday through Friday, 11 to 1 on YouTube. They've just been crushing it over there. Just a lot of fantastic content. It's the perfect mix of serious, straight content and guys just having fun with each other. So make sure you're checking that out on YouTube. Make sure you're following at GBush91. Catch the Barbershop Saturday mornings, 92.3 The Fan. Other opportunities to catch Garrett over there as well. Myself, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd. The show at Locked On Browns. Follow back account. We appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day, whether it's on your favorite podcast platform, here on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed, you're have notifications on, throwing some likes on the episodes. We appreciate you all for the growth over there. It's just been exponential to this point. If you do have Roku, open it up, search Locked On Cleveland Sports. You will find the Locked On Browns podcast, the Locked On Cavaliers podcast, Locked On Guardians podcast, and of course, G and the crew at the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. So it is Brian Flores Day. Talked about his history. We talked about his fit and talked about the fact that no one should care. If this goes and they hire Brian Flores and it goes well, we all understand that it's a one-year rental, and I think we're all more than just fine with that. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.